People are crying out for Prey to be released in theaters thanks to terrifying stunts and creature designs. But mostly that cute shelter doggo, right? So much awesomeness went into making this movie, and we're covering it all. Number 1. Trees weren't part of the equation. That was all Dakota Beaver, leaping off the back of the horse and throwing a spear into the predator. They did actually hire a stunt double for that shot. They wanted a stunt double so that their lead didn't, break a leg, of course, but Dakota wanted to do the shot so bad. He eventually got his way after pressuring the stunt coordinator. He was wired up and put on top of the horse, and well, he hit a tree. More than once, and he landed pretty hard, but they got the shots they needed, and he found the whole thing a lot of fun to shoot. Number 2. Imagine 2018's Predator in the 1700s. They had to downgrade the Predator to make it a fair fight. While already limiting his weapons, they considered
maybe he should be something more primitive, and what does that make of his character?
They thought about making him a Neanderthal at one point too, but that design looked too clunky.
But Dane's head is in the neck of the predator.
Dane's also facing the ground. The mechanical head weighed more than 11 pounds, too. The creature wasn't totally practical, though. The moving pictures company developed a CG predator that they used for inhuman performances to augment or replace parts of the practical suit, and for close-ups when they needed a more exaggerated look. Number 3. This was no trip to the spa. The mud pit was just disgusting to film in. Amber Midthunder admitted, "I had heard about it beforehand. Somebody had done a test and was like, oh, it's not that bad, it's just like water with leaves in it. So she thought, easy, great, amazing, it'll just be like a mud bath or whatever." Wrong. It was definitely not just water with leaves. So she has no idea what this thick goo is, but she feels like it's been absorbed into her skin. And then nothing could prepare her for the smell. Oh, the smell. The director said it didn't smell weird until it touched human flesh. What a disgusting thing to say, right? Number 4. We're surprised this process didn't take all day. Getting the suit on was actually a pretty quick event. It took 15 minutes or less to get Dane DiLiegro suited up. At least the main bits. Then they had to glue a patch on the back to cover the zipper and slip his gloves on and, of course, put on that giant head. They were nice enough to leave the head off of him as much as possible.
It's probably one of the roughest sets that I've seen any of our practical effects creatures working on.
It's actually a very thin suit in a lot of places, less than a 1/4 inch thick, but no. That 12-pack does not belong to the actor.
I am not as ripped as he is.
Number 5. Usually you have the name of your movie by the time you're printing the scripts. That was just not important for this movie, we guess, because they didn't have a name for the thing even while they were mid-shoot. Ridiculous. Number 6. It's like a dance, but there's more rolling around on the ground. The trapper fight was truly a one-shot sequence, so it required a bunch of cowboy switches. It's when an actor switches place with their stunt double mid-scene and vice versa. And in the trapper fight shot, they rolled in and out of the scene more than a few times. How do they manage to keep their hair and costumes looking so good? Number 7. Working with smoke is a bad idea.
Never work with smoke in a field because it was so difficult.
The burnt glade scene that looked smoky and dark was shot during bright, sunny daylight, and they had 5 smoke machines. Relying on the natural direction of the wind to blow the smoke was a menace. They'd be standing, waiting, ready to go, in position. The Predator actor would just be getting his head on, and they would have to hold for smoke. Number 8. And now for the Meryl Streep of dogs. Coco had humble beginnings. She started off as a shelter dog and made it to the big time with no training. Amber referred to her as a little bit of a hot mess, but in a sweet way. Coco wasn't intended to have star billing. They truly didn't mean for her to be in as much of the movie as they had her, but her presence was just so fun that she kept being asked back. Number 9. Unlike the doggo, the horse was a natural. Dakota Beavers may look like a natural rider in the film, but trust us, he only learned for filming. During that 4-week boot camp, he was riding at every possible minute, and it didn't stop there. On his days off from filming, he was back on the horse and riding again. Number 10. Tall guys can do parkour too. The 6'9" actor who played the Predator lost 25 pounds to play the role. He also had an aggressive workout routine. He said that they wanted a lean, dynamic, more animal predator. Traditionally, he's more of a muscular guy. He trained in parkour for 2 months, saying, "I'm 6'9". Not many 6'9" guys do parkour. He also trained in martial arts for 2 months, specifically his neck. He teamed up with a company called Iron Neck and strengthened it for 2 months because of the heavy predator head. It was about 13 pounds or something, which weighed well over 10 pounds. On top of all the acting, he did all the stunts and the motion capture too. Number 11. Why did school take 14 years if you can learn so many skills in a month? 4 weeks in Calgary were dedicated to preparing actors for their roles. They did stunt choreography and weapon training.
We did archery and spears and knives and the tomahawk.
Amber learned every single sequence in its entirety because she wanted to do everything herself, saying, "So I got to jump off the tree. I got to get thrown off the predator. I got to fight him." Despite the training, Amber admitted there's nothing that really prepares you for a week in a mud pit, you know? Number 12. Wear a life jacket whenever possible. It may save your life. One location that really made Amber uncomfortable was the river. For good reason. She said, "I grew up around water, but I also grew up knowing how dangerous it is." But it's okay. She managed, admitting, "I had anxiety building on top of anxiety on top of anxiety, but once I got in, it was so fun." While she did get used to the river for the most part, there was one bit that no one could get used to, and that was the temperature. Because even though it was summertime, it was glacial runoff water. Amber said, "We were there for like 5 days. So for 5 days, I would wake up and be like, ice bath." Number 13. Not every great idea makes it. The director's a bit disappointed that one scene he really wanted never came to fruition. A treetop chase. He said, "I was, for whatever reason, really obsessed with having the fights be more vertical and seeing the predator leaping through the trees." Too bad. That sounds like fun. Maybe they'll get there in a sequel or another prequel. Number 14. Coco isn't the only one who had her film debut. Prey was Dakota Beavers' first movie. He'd auditioned for something that fell through, but his name was still on file when he got an email. He was under the impression that this was for a small part. He sent in a self-tape, then a Zoom audition, then another one. Then he was flown out to LA for a screen test with Amber. Only then did he realize it wasn't just a small part. All of this flying was pretty wild for him because he'd never really been out of the country too much before, and never by plane. So flying during COVID for filming was eerily exciting because the airport felt like a ghost town. Number 15. How do you make a prototype predator just as scary? Probably the biggest struggle anyone had was reimagining the predator in a way that would keep it fresh and creepy while still honoring the original design. They really had to do something else to better fit this story. But also, the predator has a familiar face to people now. So in order to keep the scare factor up, they needed that redesign to keep people on their toes. It's like kids being scared of Santa the first time they sit on his lap compared to 5 years later. Okay, maybe it's not like that. You know that Hollywood saying, never work with animals or children? But if you have to pick one, pick a shelter dog. And if you have to pick two, pick a horse as well. Were you impressed by the design of the feral predator? Let us know in the comments, and thanks for hanging out with us here at The Things.